G'day new starters, welcome back. This week I'm wanting to talk about something that's always played a big part in my life, and that is my opinion. For the longest time in my life, my opinion was very, very important to me, and I struggle deeply if I'm wrong. Remember years ago, when Emmy and I were first married, we were going to a gathering that was at a campground, and it was about an hour or so from Brisbane. And we set off, and Emmy had never been there before, but I had been there numbers of times, and off we went. After about an hour and a half, 2 hours driving, Emmy said, "Is it much further?" And I said, No, it's not a lot further. This countryside looks very familiar. I wasn't really sure of the exact way to get there, but I did know that you came across a bridge, around a corner, down a little bit, and then there was a sign and a turn on the right. And so that was the feature that I was looking for, and I explained that to Emmy, and we kept on going for a little bit further, and about another hour passed, and she said, "Are we there yet?" And I said, "I'm not real sure." And she said, "Maybe you could ask at the next town that we come to." And I said, "No, I do know what I'm looking for. You come across this little bridge and round a corner, down the road a little bit, and there's a turn on the right." Well, to cut a long story short, after we've been driving about 4 or 5 hours, I began to believe that I had missed my turn. As it turned out, during the time since I'd been there last, they'd actually altered the road, taken the bridge out, put a brand new bridge in, cut the bend out, so that you just came down across this, sweeping across this great big nice bridge and straight ahead and down the road. And we had passed that some hours previously, but I didn't recognize it. And I remember the frustration of feeling wrong about that. And when we finally did get to the place that we were going to, the people that were there, including my parents, were pretty much beside themselves with worry, because they knew we were leaving at a certain time, and we didn't turn up until hours after we should have been there, probably 7 or 8 hours later than what we should have been there. And I remember that feeling of being undeniably wrong, and the struggle I had with it at that point in time. Well, across the years, I have discovered that setting too much stock in your opinion is a trouble that is waiting to happen. See, when you argue about opinions, there's only a right and a wrong. And if you're right, you have that sense of triumph, but you've broken relationship potentially with the person on the other side of the equation. And if you're wrong, then you have this troubled, sometimes embarrassment, sometimes sense of worthlessness that goes along with feeling wrong, depending on how much stock you put into that opinion. And it's very interesting to me, because when I began to recognize that, I discovered that the truth is, as we have ideas ultimately become beliefs that we have, and our opinions are based on our beliefs. And we actually invest our sense of identity in our beliefs. What we believe to be true, we believe to be true because we believe it to be true. And so if it's true, then that shapes the world in which we live, and it shapes us. And so we can very often and very easily take up this posture of rejecting people because they believe things to be different from us, or at the very least arguing with them to the point that we break relationship. The truth is, very few of us on very few subjects have the complete answer. There's always multiple ways of looking at situations, and the more complex the situation, the more multiple ways there are to look at it. And so nobody has a complete sense of what is right and what is wrong. And when we finally discover that in fact our identity is not the same as our opinion, that we are worth more than our ideas, and that to be wrong is not to be worthless, it's a tremendously freeing thing. It's one of the reasons why I have come to reject an idea of faith that involves arguing one position against another, whether it be two faith perspectives or one person trying to convince another person that they ought to belong to their faith. I reject that, because in the end, it has a whole lot more to do with arguing about identity issues than it does about the objective reality of the existence of God or what God is like. You see, I am convinced that God's existence doesn't need my argument. That the only thing that I can bring to the table that could be convincing about the reality and the existence of God is the way that He shaped me and transforms me. I may very well have some developed ideas about what God is like, and I'm perfectly prepared to share those with people. But I'm not prepared to impose my perspectives, which are probably identity perspectives, upon another individual unless I am invited to share how I see things, and even then I hold them loosely. You know what? I have held beliefs about God that I have held to be foundationally true, that as I've grown, I've realized actually didn't represent God at all, and I've needed to let go of those ideas. So one of the things that I find myself doing these days, being on Facebook, and you see things pop up about evidences for the existence of God, or somebody arguing for their case of God, or rejecting somebody else's idea of God. I really, really dislike that very much. Who God is, what God does, the evidence of His existence is His work in my life. And I want to go out into the week that is ahead of me to be the best representation of the love that He has placed within me and that has transformed me with. And that's not going to be helped by me arguing with people about it. So I've let go of the arguments, and I invite you to do the same. Have a great week. See you next week.